when an alien distress call reached Earth through a critical translation error. Humanity did what it does best, mobilized an entire fleet to help complete strangers fight an impossible war, and somehow won. The Zephyrian Council chamber had never seen such chaos. Ambassador Kethfer's forearms trembled as he clutched the emergency transmitter, his crystalline exoskeleton clicking with nervous energy. Around him, the greatest minds of the Galactic Confederation argued in 17 different languages, their panic filling the vast dome with a cacophony of fear. "The Devourers have broken through the outer rim," announced General Thax, his tentacles writhing with barely contained terror. 3-star systems have already gone dark. At their current pace, they'll reach the core worlds within 2 standard cycles. The Devourers, even their name sent shivers through every civilized species in the galaxy. An extra-dimensional plague that consumed not just worlds, but the very fabric of space-time itself. They had appeared without warning 6 months ago, emerging from tears in reality like cosmic locusts, leaving nothing but void in their wake. Kethfer's mandibles clicked rapidly as he scrolled through the Confederation's emergency protocols. "We've tried everything," he muttered, his voice crackling through the translator. "The Altarian war forms, the Centaur I megaships, even the void-touched psionics. Nothing slows them down. What about Protocol 77 Alpha?" squeaked Counselor Pip, her furry form barely visible behind the towering crystalline delegates. The deep space distress beacon. A hush fell over the chamber. Protocol 77 Alpha was a last resort, a blind transmission sent into the unknown regions of space, hoping that somewhere out there, a species powerful enough to help would hear their call. "You mean contact the barbarian sectors, General?" Thax's voice dripped with disdain. "Those backwater systems haven't even achieved faster than light travel. What could primitive species possibly do against the Devourers?" But Kethfer was already inputting the coordinates. His people, the Zephyrians, were known for their pragmatism. Pride was a luxury they couldn't afford with extinction looming. "We're out of options," he said, his fingers dancing over the holographic controls. "If there's even a chance." The transmission array powered up, its crystalline core humming with barely contained energy. Kethfer input the standard Galactic Confederation distress call, adding their linguistic matrices and a desperate plea for aid. The message would be broadcast omnidirectionally, reaching every corner of their local galactic arm. "Signal transmitted," announced the AI. "Estimated reach 47 star systems, including 12 uncharted sectors." "Now we wait," Kethfer said, though he knew in his heart that no help would come. The barbarian sectors were filled with primitive species barely out of their Stone Age. What could they possibly do against a cosmic horror that had defeated the combined might of 1,000 civilized worlds? He was about to learn. 20-3 light-years away, in a small blue world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, the signal struck Earth's deep space monitoring station like a thunderbolt. Dr. Sarah Chen nearly spilled her coffee as every screen in the facility lit up at once. "What the hell?" she muttered, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she tried to make sense of the data flooding in. "Sarah, you need to see this," called her colleague, Dr. James Rodriguez, from across the room. "I'm getting massive electromagnetic interference, but there's definitely a pattern here. This isn't natural." Sarah's heart pounded as she ran the signal through their translation algorithms. First contact protocols flashed through her mind. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries, but they'd always imagined they would be the ones reaching out, not the other way around. "It's definitely artificial," she confirmed, watching as the computer slowly began to decode the alien mathematics. "And James... I think it's a distress call." Hours passed as the world's best linguists and xenobiologists worked around the clock. The message was incredibly complex, containing what appeared to be star charts, linguistic matrices, and most disturbing of all, tactical data about some kind of ongoing conflict. But there was a problem. The translation software, designed by Earth's brightest minds, but untested on truly alien languages, made a critical error. where the original message spoke of the Galactic Confederation's plea for assistance. The Earth computers translated it as the Galactic Confederation offers assistance. Where the aliens had written, "We are dying and need your help," the translation read, "We are powerful and offer our help." Most critically, where the original message described humanity as primitive barbarians from an uncharted sector, the computer somehow interpreted this as advanced military specialists from a strategic sector. Dr. Chen stared at the final translation, her hand shaking slightly. According to this, we're being invited to join some kind of galactic alliance. They're asking us to send military support against something called the Devourers. Military support? Dr. Rodriguez looked skeptical. Sarah, we can barely get 3 countries to agree on a trade deal. How are we supposed to provide military support to aliens? But the decision was already being made in rooms far above their pay grade. Within hours, the message had reached the highest levels of government. Emergency sessions were called, alliances were forged, and for the first time in human history, the species united with a single purpose. The aliens needed help, and humanity would answer. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, humanity's first true deep space warship. Around him, the greatest technological achievement in human history hummed with barely contained power: nuclear pulse drives, railgun batteries, fusion missiles, and most importantly, humanity's greatest weapon, pure, stubborn determination. Admiral, called Commander Lisa Park from the communications station, were receiving final roster updates from the other ships. Webb nodded, looking out at the fleet assembled around his flagship. 200 vessels strong. Every spacefaring nation on Earth had contributed something. Converted cargo ships bristling with weapons, nuclear submarines retrofitted for space combat, and experimental fighters that had never been tested beyond Earth orbit. It was a ramshackle fleet by any reasonable standard, held together with determination, duct tape, and human ingenuity. But it was humanity's answer to the call for help, and they would not be found wanting. Final count, Admiral Park reported. 212 ships, 47,000 personnel, the largest military force humanity has ever assembled. Webb felt the weight of history on his shoulders. "Signal the fleet," he said quietly. "Begin FTL sequence." The ships around them began to shimmer as their experimental faster-than-light drives powered up. Humanity had achieved FTL travel just 6 months ago, a breakthrough that had taken most species millennia to achieve. But humans had always been good at doing impossible things when properly motivated. "FTL drives online," reported the navigation officer. "Course laid in for the coordinates specified in the alien transmission. All ships report ready." "Admiral," Webb took a deep breath. "Take us to the stars, Commander. Time to show the galaxy what humanity can do." The fleet vanished in flashes of twisted spacetime, racing toward a destiny none of them could imagine. The Zephyrin monitoring station at the edge of Confederation space had been running on skeleton crew for weeks. Most personnel had been evacuated as the Devourer front crept ever closer. Junior Technician Ythel was one of the few remaining, manning the deep space sensors more out of habit than hope, which is why he nearly fell out of his chair when 212 FTL signatures appeared on his screen at once. "By the 7 moons," he whispered, his manipulator arms dancing over the controls. "Control, this is Station Theta 9. I'm reading massive FTL emergence, bearing to 7 Mark IV. Multiple contacts, definitely artificial." The response was immediate. "Theta 9, confirm your readings. We have no scheduled arrivals in your sector." "Confirmed, Control. I count ... by the ancestors, over 200 vessels. Unknown configuration. Definitely not Confederation standard." Across the fleet, human sensors were painting the same picture. From the other side, long-range scans showed a massive battle raging in the system ahead. Energy signatures that defied understanding. Space itself seeming to tear and buckle under the assault of whatever these devourers were. "Admiral," called the sensor operator aboard the Indomitable. "I'm reading Confederation ships engaged with ... something. The energy readings are off the charts." Through the viewports, they could see it. Flashes of light that outshone stars. Space twisting in impossible ways as reality itself seemed under attack, and moving through it all. Ship-sized holes in existence that devoured everything they touched. "Those must be the Devourers," Webb said grimly. "Signal the fleet. Attack formation Alpha. All weapons hot." "Sir," called Commander Park, "we're receiving a transmission from the Confederation forces. It's confused." "Sir, they seem surprised to see us." Webb frowned. "Surprised, but they called for help." What they didn't know was that on the other side, Ambassador Kethfer was staring at his screens in complete bewilderment. The primitive barbarians from the uncharted sector had not only received their distress call, they had assembled a fleet and come to help. "How is this possible?" he muttered. "Their technology readings are primitive, but there are so many of them, and they're heading directly into the battle zone." General Thax's tentacles writhed with confusion. "Perhaps they don't understand the danger. Should we warn them off?" But it was too late. The human fleet was already engaging. The first thing humanity learned about fighting cosmic horrors was that conventional physics were more of a guideline than a rule. The second thing they learned was that cosmic horrors could still be hurt if you hit them hard enough. The UES Indomitable's railguns spoke first, accelerating tungsten projectiles to a significant fraction of light speed. The round struck a Devourer entity that had been slowly consuming a Confederation dreadnought, and for the first time in the war, one of the creatures recoiled. "Direct hit," called the weapons officer. "The target is ... It's backing away from the Confederation ship." Across the fleet, human weapons opened fire. Nuclear missiles detonated in brilliant flashes, their fusion fires somehow affecting beings that existed partially outside normal space-time. Particle beams and plasma cannons, weapons that other species had deemed too crude for modern warfare, carved chunks out of entities that had been considered invulnerable. "This is impossible," whispered Kethfer, watching from the command ship. "Eternal Dawn, they're actually hurting them." How are they hurting them? The answer was uniquely human. Where other species had tried to fight the Devourers with exotic energy weapons and dimensional manipulators, humanity had brought the most basic tools of warfare: kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives, and nuclear fire, crude, brutal, and apparently effective against beings that had evolved defenses against sophisticated energy attacks. "Admiral," called Commander Park, "the Confederation ships are rallying behind us. I think they're taking heart from our attack." Webb smiled grimly. "Signal the fleet. All ships, focus fire on the largest target. Time to show these things what a concentrated human assault looks like." The entire human fleet turned their weapons on a massive devourer entity that had been in the process of consuming an entire moon. 200 ships worth of firepower struck it at once. Railgun rounds, fusion missiles, particle beams, and even kinetically launched asteroids that enterprising cargo ship captains had picked up along the way. The entity convulsed, its impossible geometry collapsing in on itself. For a moment, it seemed to stabilize, its alien form adapting to the assault. Then a single nuclear mine, planted by a daring fighter pilot who had somehow managed to get inside its dimensional field, detonated. The devourer entity ceased to exist. The silence that followed was broken by cheering across every Confederation ship in the system. For the first time since the war began, one of the creatures was truly dead. Word spread across the Confederation fleet like wildfire. The primitive barbarians from the uncharted sector had killed a devourer. More than that, they were systematically hunting down the entities that had terrorized the galaxy. "How are they doing it?" demanded General Thax, his command ship moving to support a human destroyer that was trading fire with 3 smaller devourers. "Our best scientists said they were invulnerable." Kethfer was studying the tactical display with fascination. "Look at their attack patterns, General. They're not trying to match the devourer's exotic properties. They're using ... I believe the term is brute force. It was true. Where Confederation forces had tried to counterphase their weapons or match dimensional frequencies, the humans simply shot at the Devourers with whatever they had. Their weapons were crude by galactic standards, but they were also unpredictable. The entities had evolved defenses against sophisticated energy attacks, but they had never encountered species primitive enough to use kinetic projectiles and fusion bombs. Admiral Webb was coordinating the assault from the Indomitable when a new contact appeared on the sensors. This one was different, larger than the others, and radiating energy signatures that made their instruments scream warnings. Admiral called the sensor operator, massive contact emerging from dimensional rift. It single quotes S... God in heaven. It's the size of a small moon. Through the viewports, they could see it materializing, a Devourer Prime, one of the entity's command forms. Its mere presence was tearing holes in spacetime, causing nearby asteroids to simply cease existing. Sir, whispered Commander Park, Confederation Command is signaling a general retreat. They're calling it a Prime-class entity, apparently. Nothing has ever successfully engaged one before. Webb studied the massive creature as it began to move toward the densest concentration of Confederation ships. Around it, space itself seemed to be unraveling, and he could see why the aliens were terrified. But he had also seen what human weapons could do to these things. Signal the fleet, he said quietly. All ships converge on the Prime. Everything we have. Sir, the Confederation forces are retreating, then we'll have to handle this ourselves. Webb's voice carried across the fleet communications. All ships, this is Admiral Webb. That thing represents everything we've ever fought against. The unknown, the impossible, the force that would destroy entire civilizations. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity does not retreat. 212 ships turned toward the Devourer Prime. The assault on the Devourer Prime was like nothing the galaxy had ever witnessed. Every human ship emptied their magazines in a coordinated strike that lit up the system like a newborn star. Nuclear fire blossomed across the entity's impossible surface while railgun rounds struck with the force of meteor impacts. The Prime recoiled, its dimensional form flickering as it tried to adapt to the sheer volume of crude, kinetic force being directed at it. But humanity had learned something important about fighting cosmic horrors. Persistence mattered more than sophistication. Reloading tubes 1 through 6, called the weapons officer aboard the Indomitable. Ready for second salvo. All fighters. Attack Run Alpha. Admiral Webb commanded. Target the dimensional anchors at grid references 7-7 and 12-4. Human fighter craft, little more than fusion engines strapped to cockpits and weapons, dove into the entity's dimensional field. Half of them were consumed instantly, their matter scattered across multiple dimensions, but the other half managed to deploy their payloads, improvised nuclear charges that detonated inside the creature's exotic matter field. The Prime writhed, its form destabilizing as internal explosions tore through its non-Euclidean geometry. But it was adapting, its alien intelligence analyzing the human attack patterns and developing countermeasures. Admiral, called Commander Park urgently, the entity is charging some kind of directed energy weapon. Power readings are off the charts. Through the viewport, they could see space itself bending around the Prime as it prepared to unleash whatever devastating attack it had been saving. The weapon would likely vaporize half the human fleet in a single strike, which was when humanity played their final card. All ships, Webb said calmly, initiate Protocol Omega. Across the fleet, human captains received the same message, and every one of them smiled grimly. Protocol Omega was exactly the kind of insane, desperate gambit that epitomized human military thinking. Every ship in the fleet simultaneously overloaded their FTL drives. The resulting explosion of twisted spacetime and exotic matter turned the entire battle zone into a maelstrom of physics-defying chaos. Ships that could survive the detonation of their own FTL cores, most of them emerged from the blast zone to find the Devourer Prime torn apart by forces even it couldn't adapt. When the energy readings finally settled, The massive entity was gone, leaving behind only scattered exotic matter that quickly dissipated into normal space. The silence that followed the destruction of the Devourer Prime lasted exactly 7 seconds. Then every Confederation ship in the system began broadcasting simultaneously, their crews cheering in languages that spanned a dozen star systems. Ambassador Kepfer stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The readings were clear. The Prime was dead, along with every other Devourer entity in the system. The primitive barbarians had done what the combined might of the Galactic Confederation could not: open a channel to the human flagship. He ordered, his voice shaking with emotion. I must speak with their commander. The translation matrix took several minutes to establish proper protocols, but eventually, Admiral Webb's image appeared on the main screen. Kepfer was surprised too. See that the human looked remarkably calm for someone who had just saved an entire star system. Admiral Webb, Kepfer began, his words carefully translated. I am Ambassador Kepfer of the Zephyrian Confederation. On behalf of all our member species, I must express our profound gratitude for your assistance in this battle. Webb nodded. Respectfully, Ambassador, we were glad to help. Your distress call made it clear that entire civilizations were at stake. Humanity couldn't stand by while intelligent species faced extinction. Kepfer felt his mandibles click with confusion. Our distress call. Admiral, I'm afraid there may have been some miscommunication. We sent out a desperate plea for aid, not an invitation for you to risk your lives for us. It was Webb's turn to look confused. Ambassador, the message we received clearly stated that the Confederation was offering military alliance and requesting our assistance against the Devourers. We assumed you had evaluated our capabilities and determined we could help. A long pause followed as both sides realized what had happened. The translation error that had brought humanity into the war had been a mistake, a simple miscommunication that had changed the course of galactic history. Admiral, Kepfer said slowly, are you telling me that your species received a garbled transmission asking for help from complete strangers, assembled the largest military fleet in your history, and traveled across space to fight monsters you had never encountered before? Well, Webb replied, when you put it like that, it does sound a bit impulsive. But that's what humans do. Ambassador, when someone calls for help, we answer. The full scope of humanity's achievement didn't become clear until the battle reports were analyzed. The Devourers had been terrorizing the galaxy for months, consuming entire star systems, while the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy fell before them one by one. Then a species that had barely achieved faster than light travel, responding to a mission-slated distress call, had assembled a fleet of improvised warships and ended the war in a single battle. It defies all logical analysis, reported Confederation Science Director Vex High to the Emergency Council session. By every metric we use to evaluate military capability, the humans should have been destroyed in the first minutes of engagement. Their weapons are primitive, their ships are barely space-worthy, and their tactics are chaotic, and yet they succeeded where we failed. Kepfer added quietly. Perhaps our metrics are flawed. The reports made for fascinating reading. Human weapons, dismissed as crude kinetic projectiles, had proven more effective against the Devourers than any exotic energy system. Human tactics, which seemed random and undisciplined to Confederation observers, had consistently outmaneuvered entities that operated on multi-dimensional tactical matrices. Most importantly, human psychology had proven uniquely suited to fighting cosmic horrors, where other species had been paralyzed by the Devourer's reality-bending nature. Humans had simply adapted their tactics and kept shooting. There's something else, Vex High continued, his crystalline form flickering with nervous energy. We've been analyzing the human fleet's performance characteristics. Their technology may be primitive, but their rate of innovation is unprecedented. They've developed solutions to problems that took us centuries to solve, and they did it in months. What are you suggesting? Asked General Thax. I'm suggesting, Vex High replied, that we may have discovered the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And fortunately for us, they seem to be on our side. The council chamber fell silent. As the implication sank in, humanity had stumbled into galactic politics by accident, but their capabilities were undeniable. They were innovative, aggressive, and apparently willing to risk everything to help complete strangers. We need to establish formal diplomatic relations, Kepler said finally. If the humans are willing, I propose we offer them full membership in the Confederation. They've certainly earned it, agreed General Thax, but are we sure we can handle having them as allies? Their approach to problem-solving seems to involve a lot of ... explosions. Kepler's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. General, after what I've witnessed today, I'm not sure we can afford not to have them as allies. The humans may be chaotic, but they get results. Admiral Webb stood in the observation deck of the Indomitable, looking out at the combined human and Confederation fleets as they conducted joint recovery operations. Human ships worked alongside alien vessels, their crews sharing techniques and technologies in an impromptu cultural exchange. Admiral, called Commander Park from behind him, were receiving a priority transmission from Earth. The President wants a full briefing on our diplomatic options. Webb nodded. The political implications of first contact were staggering, especially when that contact had come through military action. Humanity had announced their presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible, by saving it, and the Confederation's formal offer. He asked, full membership, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. They're also requesting permission to establish an embassy on Earth and offering to share their technological databases. Webb considered the offer carefully. The Galactic Confederation represented thousands of worlds and dozens of species, all bound together by common laws and mutual defense pacts. Joining would instantly make humanity a major player in galactic politics. It would also mean accepting responsibility for protecting civilizations across the stars. Sir, Park continued, Ambassador Kepler is requesting a private meeting. He says there are things about the Confederation that humanity should know before making a decision. An hour later, Webb found himself in the Indomitable's conference room, facing the alien diplomat across a table designed for human use. Kepler had adapted remarkably well to the smaller scale. His forearms folded in what Webb had learned was a gesture of respect. Admiral, Kepler began, before your government makes its decision, you should understand what membership in the Confederation truly means. We are not just an alliance of convenience. We are species that have chosen to stand together against the darkness between stars. The Devourers weren't the first threat we've faced, and they won't be the last. There are things in the deep void that make them seem like minor nuisances. Ancient intelligences that consider all organic life to be a contamination to be cleansed. Machine minds that consume entire galaxies to fuel their calculations. Entities from dimensions where the very concept of existence is different from ours. Webb felt a chill run down his spine. And the Confederation stands against all of them. We try, Kepler replied. Sometimes we succeed. Sometimes we merely survive. But we never stop trying, because the alternative is the extinction of all life in the universe. Why tell me this? Are you trying to scare us away? Kepler's mandibles clicked in what Webb had learned was amusement. Admiral, I've seen what humans do when faced with impossible odds and innocent lives at stake. I'm not trying to scare you away. I'm trying to warn you that accepting our offer means accepting a burden that will test your species for millennia to come. Webb was quiet for a long moment, considering the weight of the decision. Humanity had always dreamed of reaching the stars, but they had imagined exploration and discovery, not an eternal war against cosmic horror. Ambassador, he said finally, humanity has spent its entire history fighting against extinction. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and our own worst impulses. We've always found a way to keep going, to keep pushing forward, to keep protecting what matters. If there are threats out there that endanger innocent life, then humanity's answer the same as it was when we received your distress call. We'll stand up and fight. Kethfer's crystalline exoskeleton shimmered with what Webb realized was relief. Then welcome to the Galactic Confederation, Admiral. May your species never lose the courage that brought you to our aid. 6 months later, the Terran embassy on Zephyr Prime was a study in contrast, human architectural sensibilities adapted to alien aesthetics, creating something that was uniquely representative of the newest member of the Galactic Confederation. Ambassador Sarah Chen, formerly Dr. Chen from the Deep Space Monitoring Station, stood at her office window, watching human and alien children playing together in the embassy gardens. First contact had changed everything. Humanity had gone from an isolated species on a single world to citizens of a galactic community almost overnight. The technological exchange alone had advanced human science by centuries, while human innovations in warfare, engineering, and stubborn determination had revitalized Confederation military doctrine. Madam Ambassador called her aide, a young Altarian named Zixball, whose translator still struggled with human contractions. The morning briefing materials have arrived. 3 new systems have requested human military advisors, and the Confederation Science Council is asking for volunteers for their new Impossible Engineering program. Chen smiled. The Impossible Engineering program had been her husband James's idea, a joint research initiative where human creativity was paired with alien knowledge to solve problems that neither species could handle alone. The preliminary results had been remarkable, producing innovations that defied conventional understanding of physics. Any word from the Deep Survey Fleet? She asked. Admiral Webb reports successful first contact with the hegemony of rings. Apparently, they were impressed by humanity's direct approach to diplomacy. Chen chuckled. Webb's direct approach had involved challenging the hegemony's war chief to single combat when negotiations stalled, then defeating him in a battle that lasted 3 hours and ended with both combatants unconscious but respectful of each other's fighting spirit. The hegemony had immediately requested alliance with the small but fierce warrior species. Ma'am, Sixball continued, there's also a personal message from Earth. Your mother says congratulations on the promotion, and she's very proud that you're representing humanity to the stars. She also asks when you're coming home for dinner. Chen felt a warm glow at the message. No matter how far humanity traveled, or how many allies they made, some things never changed. Family was still family, whether it existed on one world or scattered across the galaxy. Tell her I'll be home for Christmas, Chen said. And Zixball, send a message to all our diplomatic missions. Let them know that humanity's offer still stands. Anywhere in the galaxy, if someone calls for help, we'll answer, even if it's a mistake again. Ma'am. Chen looked out at the garden where human and alien children were teaching each other games that neither species had invented alone. Especially if it's a mistake. Zixball. Sometimes the best things happen when nobody planned them. As she spoke, reports were already coming in from the galaxy's edge. Strange signals from dark space, whispers of ancient things stirring in the void between galaxies. The Devourers had been just the beginning, and greater challenges lay ahead. But for the first time in galactic history, those challenges would be met by a united front that included a species crazy enough to cross the stars to help complete strangers, skilled enough to turn improvised weapons into instruments of victory, and stubborn enough to never give up no matter how impossible the odds. Humanity had found its place among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same.